Hello there my fellow Criterion collectors. Today in this video I have some of the latest Blu-rays and 4Ks to talk about and give you my thoughts on these particular films. Let's start with one of the films that won a ton of awards earlier this year. It's Anora, directed and written by Sean Baker. Now this is one that I missed when it was first released in the cinemas, and I really wanted to see it because it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes Film Festival last year. It of course won a load of Oscars earlier this year as well. And here we have it on this 4K disc from Criterion in this digipack packaging. This is a UK release as well as a US release. In fact, all of the ones in this video are available in both regions. I've been a fan of Sean Baker's work going back many years now. In fact, The Florida Project was one of the very first films that my wife and I saw together at the cinema when we first started dating. That was about 8 years ago now. And naturally, having heard all of the hype around this film, I was very excited to finally watch it. In the film, Mikey Madison plays this stripper who meets this young Russian guy who is very wealthy, and they have this kind of whirlwind romance. Although romance is probably the wrong word because it doesn't really feel romantic at all. There's lots of partying and exuberance, and things escalate very rapidly to the point where they get married. But once they tie the knot, the family of this Russian boy get involved, and the people working for them try to pressure this young couple, and then things get very out of hand. And I don't want to say what else goes on in this film because I don't want to risk spoiling it for you. I had a great time watching this on the Criterion disc, although I do think this has been a victim of overhyping for myself because I waited so long to see this. I'd heard all of the great things about it, and I think I was expecting something a bit different here. I like a lot of the direction, I like how the film looks, I like the performances in this film, but the one thing that really sticks out to me is the nature of the central character here, Anora. Throughout the film, she isn't given much agency. We don't see her make many decisions, many mistakes, and often other characters in the film take her agency away from her. Sometimes she's being physically restrained by some of the men in this film. Other times it's just because she's in a situation where the other people are more powerful, they have more wealth, and so she feels very much like a fish out of water in those scenarios. For much of the film, she is simply dragged along by the other characters in the film, often in search of someone or trying to get in contact with someone else. They go to all these different places, but it's never her making the decisions. So as a protagonist of a film, I kind of found it very hard to latch onto. So by the time we get to the end of the film, the particular ending that this film has just didn't quite sit right to me, given what I've just said about how I felt about the main character. It did have me thinking, am I just missing something? What are other people seeing here that I'm not seeing? So it is definitely a film I'm going to be revisiting because I love this filmmaker. Sean Baker has made so many great films. It looks great on the 4K disc, sounds great as well, and there are a ton of special features on the included Blu-ray here. So yes, maybe just a victim of all of the hype that this film got, for me personally, but it's one I'm going to revisit sometime in the future when I do a Sean Baker retrospective. But I'm very happy with the disc and the package that Criterion have put together. Sticking with Sean Baker, we have Prince of Broadway getting a Blu-ray debut. This is one of Sean Baker's films from the mid-2000s, 2008. In this film, we follow an African immigrant who is selling counterfeit goods, like fake handbags, in New York City. And that's his daily lifestyle. He's just trying to shift as many of these counterfeit goods as possible. But at the start of the film, he gets approached by one of his ex-partners, and this baby is just dumped in front of him, so he has to look after this young child, not quite knowing if it is actually his child or not. And this kind of gives him a bit of an awakening. He has to wrestle with these new emotions and get to the bottom of who is this young child. This was my first time seeing this one as well, and I really enjoyed this. This has so many of the Sean Baker hallmarks, the realism style of filmmaking that he brings to his films, often through handheld cameras or really run and gun type of filming. Something which maybe was perhaps lost in Anora, given that it was probably his biggest budget film to date. So Prince of Broadway was a real gem for me, and Criterion have put together some great special features newly made for this release with Sean Baker and other collaborators talking about this film and the restoration process. So another excellent release of a Sean Baker film in the Criterion Collection, and I just hope we see a few more films of his come to the collection one day. Sticking with New York City films, we have the 4K release of the film Basquiat, the film about the very famous artist who died at a very young age. This is from the 1990s, and this film has an absolutely stacked cast. You have Jeffrey Wright playing the man himself, you have Gary Oldman, Benicio del Toro, David Bowie is here playing Andy Warhol, you've got Willem Dafoe, you've got Dennis Hopper. So many great actors are in this film. Now, this was also my first time watching this because it hadn't been previously available on Blu-ray, at least in this country. And given that cast and some of the things I'd heard about this film, I thought this was going to be an absolute revelation. But honestly, this film left me a bit cold and wanting so much more, quite frankly. Here you have this very famous artist who had this whole movement around him, and you don't really get much of his art coming through in this film, particularly because, I should mention, this 4K release has the film in black and white on the 4K disc, which is a new version of the film, and the actual theatrical colour version is only on the included Blu-ray. Now, I did watch both versions of this film, and honestly, I don't quite see the merit of this new black and white version. And it's particularly strange that that is the version that is presented on the 4K disc only. And what's even more of a shame is that there are noticeable issues on the Blu-ray of the colour theatrical version. Some of Criterion's usual compression issues rear their ugly heads. This black and white version is even more baffling when you consider the artwork of the man himself, which is so bold and colourful, and that doesn't really fit this cool black and white style of the film. Now, the actual presentation of this 4K black and white film looks excellent, and the cinematography in this film is very good. So the film has that going for itself, but this is one of those films where it feels like the individual elements are actually better than when they are all put together. It's also a film that is made in the vein of the American independent movies that were coming out in the 90s, taking inspiration from films by Jim Jarmusch, yet it is missing what makes Jim Jarmusch's films so good, in my opinion. So yeah, a real letdown in some ways, and it's quite a peculiar thing now that we have this film in this black and white version, when the colour version, which I would say is actually a better version of the film, is only on the Blu-ray. And then we come to a film that is most definitely a masterpiece. It is Ugetsu, from Japanese filmmaker Kenji Mizoguchi, often referred to as one of the big three filmmakers in the history of Japanese cinema, alongside Akira Kurosawa and Yasujiro Ozu. And all three of those filmmakers, you can't really mistake one of their works to be from one of the other filmmakers because they are so unique in how they approach cinema. Ugetsu is a story about these two villagers who live in rural Japan, and they make these pots out of clay, and they decide that they're going to go and try and sell these pots to achieve some kind of fame and fortune. But to do so, they have to leave their two wives behind, and it is out of these circumstances that there is tragedy. Now, Mizoguchi was excellent at directing tragedy on screen, and particularly showing how tragedy can affect female characters, and some of his films actually focus namely on female characters. His films always have an otherworldly feel to it, sometimes incorporating supernatural elements, things like ghosts and spirits. So Mizoguchi just has a unique style, and if you've never seen one of his films before, or if you're just getting into classic Japanese cinema, then this is definitely the place you should visit next. Now, that said, this is the 4K upgrade of Criterion's older Blu-ray of Ugetsu, which I happen to have here, and these two versions, they look very similar. That's often the case with these 4K upgrades, although the colours on the actual artwork are different. The new one is more sepia toned, whereas this is more typical black and white. The 4K digipack is also thicker, as well as being taller than the previous release. There are no new special features on the new release of Ugetsu, so you're only getting the film upgraded to 4K. So the question then becomes, is this film worth upgrading to the new 4K disc from Criterion? Well, if you already have their older Blu-ray, I would say probably not. And the reason is these are both taken from the same 4K digital restoration that was made a number of years ago. And as is the trend with these 4K upgrades from Criterion, there's no HDR here, there's no Dolby Vision, which is fine. But then if you come to do a side-by-side of the new 4K with the older Blu-ray, well, there isn't actually that much in it because there is no high dynamic range. Now, I would say it is an upgrade, of course, because you have this film on a 4K disc and there is the additional resolution there. But due to the current state of the film and how the restoration was done, it isn't going to be any sort of mind-blowing difference. And in fact, most people probably wouldn't see much of a difference at all. So therefore, I would say if you have the Blu-ray already, there's probably not much need to upgrade to the new 4K. However, if you don't have the film at all and you want to explore it, or maybe you've already seen it and you love it, but you want to get the film on physical media, then go ahead and get the 4K. For the price difference, you might as well, especially during a sale time. However, I should point out that there is a documentary on here about Mizoguchi from Kaneto Shindo, who is another famous Japanese filmmaker. So that's a great watch to explore after watching the film. So that was just a quick look at some of the recent 4K and Blu-ray releases from Criterion. There are a lot more exciting releases coming from Criterion very soon, and of course we have the traditional Barnes & Noble sale coming up in July. So I can't wait for all of the excitement around the sale and to see what people are buying and adding to their own collections. For now, if you'd like more from me, just click the video that's on screen now to get some more reviews and recommendations from me. Until next time, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.